Boom! What up, America? Doug Gottlieb Show. Fox Sports Radio. Coming to you from the TireRack.com studios, TireRack.com. What you get there. Unmatched selection. Fast, free shipping. Free road hazard protection. Over 10,000 recommended installers, TireRack.com. It's the way tire buying should be. Hey, welcome in. It's a Wednesday. It's a hump day. It's also... Hey, thank you. Thank you. No, it's also Midway Day. We have a lot of fans of the Midway, Jay Stu. Then this is, just so you know, like, producer does come up with most of the ideas. Dan comes up with all the ideas for game time. That is all Dan. All Dan all the time. But producer generally comes up with ideas for bits, whatever. Midway was definitely Jason Stewart's idea. And I think we really did it because we started it in a summer. Was it this summer or last summer? I don't even remember. It was a summer, and we're like, we want to talk about something not sports. Let's do middle of the day, middle of the week, middle of the day, middle of the show, kind of a midway sort of topic. But this one's a good one. We have a good one. That's upcoming in 1 hour. Dan Lanning's going to be my guest, the Oregon head coach, and we'll talk about his team. They played a near perfect first half offensively, seemed to take their foot off the gas against UCLA, play on Friday night against Michigan State. He's going to join us at 25 past the hour. Yeah. And then Daniel Jeremiah next hour. And I think we're going to talk with Kalani Sitake later on this week, right? He's the BYU head coach. Yeah. So good stuff from Lee, who, of course, helps book the show as well. This is the Doug Gottlieb Show. There's Davante Adams seems to be getting shopped, and he's rehabbing an injury. I thought this was interesting. So Antonio Pierce had this exchange with a reporter about the social media post he liked that stated Davante Adams may have played his last snap as a Raider.
I guess the social media post earlier this week. Is that something that was accidental on your part in terms of liking the post? Or?
Yeah, I'm just focused on Denver.
Yeah, that happened. Here I was going to say Paul Pierce. Antonio Pierce talking about his relationship with Davante.
Where was the relationship with you and?
Me and Davante talk often.
Have you talked to him since all of this?
I believe that between me and Davante.
Here's Antonio Pierce asked about the distraction he seemingly created.
Business as usual. Just got to keep rolling. I mean, it's the NFL. Things come up every day. Since I've taken over this job, it's been obstacles. So just another one.
Antonio Pierce said this about Dante's hamstring injury.
Davante's dealing with a hamstring. He's rehabbing, and the rest of us are focused on Denver.
Is he here in the building today? Or?
He's supposed to be rehabbing.
Yeah, it's super weird, right? Super weird. It's pretty obvious Davante not bought into what they're doing. He was unhappy, though, with the previous coaching staff as well. And I think, again, I don't know this for a fact. I don't. What I'm telling you is my own perception and interpretation. Like, look, when you've been with the Packers, and the Packers are not perfect, right? They've made bad decisions. They're not the perfect organization. But the one thing you do see with the Packers is stability, right? Is stability. I mean, Mike McCarthy coached there for a long, long time before they then changed. And now you have a new head coach who's been here for, like year 4 or 5, right? Okay, and Matt LaFleur. Brian Gutekunst has been in the organization for, over 2 decades. They are stable. Right? In a world in which you have a lot of instability in the business world, they are stable. Maybe boring. Maybe they're a Volvo. Okay? But he went to the most unstable organization in professional sports. That's what the Raiders are. For people who don't know, it's not just that the Raiders moved. The Raiders cleared house on the financial side of their front office. There was all kinds of infighting, and that happened. Okay? So the Raiders had that happen to them. Then on the football side, how many GMs have we had here in the last 7 years? Like 4? And maybe 5 head coaches? All of that instability is it's hard enough to deal with when you're a true pro like Davante Adams is. Okay. Then you factor in that you came from an organization which was solid, steady, maybe a little boring, maybe a little conservative, but it was the polar opposite of the Raiders. And I find it interesting that between Davante, who all reports were actually took less money to leave Green Bay and go to the Raiders to play with Derek Carr. He'd always been a Raider fan, all those things. And, of course, you have Aaron Rodgers, who, it may have run its course, but the organization he picked is as unstable as the Raiders. They are the East Coast Raiders. How many coaches, how many quarterbacks, how many GMs have they been through? It's always something with the New York Jets. So, again, I'm sure, and I know, Jason, you love this story. There's all these juicy details, liking stuff on Instagram and whatever. Like, that stuff is, it's good. There's some good. Was when Antonio Pierce was talking about players making business decisions. Who was he talking about? But, I mean, they have Aiden O'Connell. They're not going to win. Their two quarterbacks are not good enough. Right? They have some good pieces to build around, but it's far from a complete team. And you got a guy with 1 year left on his deal. Like, it's a rented player. This is not, I don't believe it has to be nearly as tumultuous a situation as it feels like it's becoming because Antonio Pierce not handling the PR of it. But I do think that's what's got to be interesting to a lot of people. And it is interesting to me is, again, I'm not saying it puts Green Bay in this bright, shiny light, but you do start to understand when you think about it that, hey, Green Bay is stability. And when you leave stability for unstable, right, I'm sure there are people with unstable relationships that then all of a sudden they get into a healthy, stable, and you're like, man, this is so much easier. Okay? Or you're in a healthy relationship and suddenly you're in a toxic one. Right? And then your world is spinning because for however many years you were in a stable, healthy relationship, supportive, etc. That's what Davante Adams is going through. That's what Aaron Rodgers is going through. And look, we can sit there and go, hey, both these guys pulled the trigger themselves. They did. Okay? The ripcord was pulled by Davante Adams and by Aaron Rodgers. They wanted to be elsewhere, and their wishes were granted. Two different ways to do it, but they ended up being in different places. And neither have accomplished anything except for make some money that they would have made had they stayed in Green Bay and win less games. I don't know. You look at the story how you want. That's my view of it. This is the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. Davante reportedly prefers the Jets to play with Aaron Rodgers or the Saints. Okay? And what's interesting is a lot of people, he clearly wants to play with Derek Carr. Clearly wants to play with Derek Carr. So we'll see who ponies up for it. And I know there's lots of people like, hey, the Chiefs need one. I don't think the Raiders would not trade him to the Chiefs because it's the Chiefs and you're handing them another AFC West title and you might be handing them a Super Bowl. I think it's because a second-round pick is basically a third-round pick with where they're going to finish in the league, and I don't think they're going to come off a first-round pick for him.